What is up, everyone? Pittsburgh White Schwartz coming at you with another deck tech. Today I wanted to cover 8 Pants ReZero. This deck dropped relatively recently in JP and has been making some waves over there, so I wanted to cover it ahead of its inevitable announcement for English. When it will most certainly be a meta threat because the finisher is absolutely crazy and the deck itself has some really insane resource generation tools that are pretty similar to, well, exactly the same as the upcoming Albuta or Rascal Does Not Dream of Bunny Girl Senpai deck that uses the Stockuta to generate a bunch of free stock with the vanilla. ReZero, as we show the full deck list here, we can see it does the same thing, running a 4/4 lineup of both the Emilia, which is an exact clone of the Stockuta, and a 3K vanilla. Looking at the list, it might look a little weird because there's a ton of level zeros. In fact, there are 26 no level 2s. There's a couple that you could play, but not in this list. Lean lineup of level 1s, just the necessities, combos, and the Stockuta, and then into our finisher package with a couple level 3 tech pieces. So without further ado, let's jump into the cards and take a look how this deck ticks. We're going to start out with this Rem, a brand new card, which, if you're familiar with Marvel, is exactly the same as the Black Panther. This is an incredibly powerful profile that not only gives you a super chunky body at level 0, both offensively and defensively, 3k to possibly 4/5, now also giving you some filter. When you get a reverse, you can choose a magic or weapon character in your waiting room, which will be your whole deck, add it to your hand, then discard one card. One thing to note with this is that the salvage is mandatory, so when you open this card and you intend to play it, ensure you have something in your waiting room to pick up, because if your opponent crashes into it, getting it reversed on your opponent's turn, you are forced to neg one and discard a card. That being said, it's still an incredibly powerful card, as it can net you not only a big body at level 0, but also some filter. Moving on, we have the Ram. This is a Mayuri Riki when she hits waiting room. So you pay 1, look it up to top 3, choose one of those to put in your clock, and then salvage a character of any level. And it's also a level 0 bomb. So this card can trade, hit the waiting room, and then resolve her effect, both giving you some early deck speed as well as digging you into your combo pieces. A bit more of a direct way to find your combo pieces for level 1 and set up throughout the game is this double drop search. Only on a turn it's played from the stage to your hand. You can, on attack, pay 1, ditch 2, and search any 2 characters from your deck. An extremely powerful filtering tool we are slamming for because we want to see it early, and throughout the game we need to pick up our specific cards, not only looping our combo since that's all we do, as well as slam Stockutas to the board, as well as find our finishers later. This card is also very strong because at any point in the game you can rip 2 clean cards out of your deck. You will be generating a lot of clean stock using the Emilia Stockuta, so any way to rip cards out of your active deck to make your deck that much more compressed is very powerful. We're choosing to play 4 of a Brainstorm in this deck, which isn't usually typical in the modern era, but we absolutely need this card at level 1 because if we whiff on our level 1 combo, because our level 1 combo has a fail case, our entire deck kind of falls apart. So to ensure that we can grab one without having to sculpt, with just naturally drawing it, we are playing 4 for safety. When you play a climax, you can look at the top card of your deck, leave it there, put it on the bottom, choose one of your characters, give it 500 power. That scry is very powerful in confirming both our level 1 combo, as well as informing our attack order for our finisher, since she does different things depending on if there's a level 0 character on top of the deck versus anything else. That's why there's so many level 0s in the deck, as well as their overloaded utility. And it's also just a self-tap salvage Brainstorm. Pretty simple, but really good in a deck that wants to recur its combo that our Brainstorm is salvage. Moving on to some tech cards, we are choosing to play 2 of the Rem Chiuri. This is for Rem and Ram name, so it hits on pretty much exactly the same amount of your deck as a level 1 or higher Fuka 0 would, but this can technically pick up level 0s, so it's better at level 0, getting you into another playable if you are stuck there. Also on play, you can give a character 1,000 power. Nice little power pump. This card also has a couple different printings, but this one that's a PR from the most recent set is probably the most likely one you will see, especially when it comes to English, as the other ones are Japanese only. Another very interesting tech card is this Rem. She's 4,500 power, and she can never stand after she's been played to the board. However, you can pay 1, send her to waiting room, and check up the top 4 and add any character. The intent of this card is you slam it down at level 0. It can't ever stand, but you can move it back, and when you're ready, pay 1, cash it out, and get your plus back to hand instead of it just quote-unquote plussing to field. Plus to field to plus to hand later. A very interesting card in its own right. This has shown up in Japanese lists that I've seen everywhere from 4 to not at all. I've decided to include it here just to show everyone that it is an option and is a really fun card to play with. Also, just being able to pay out stock as opposed to using something like the Chiuri that we just looked at gives you options to pay down to possibly dirty stock and then replace it with clean Amelias and then twin drive them out. You have a very cool stock floating thing that you can do in this deck because of the stock of that engine. Moving on here to other ones, we have one of this Amelia. It's a clone of the TD Rimuru, still a console on play, as well as a discard climax salvage. A powerful double filter tool, especially since we are running 8 pants, which can get cloggy in your hand to change them into any card that we need. Both a rip off the top of the deck, which can possibly move a card later in the game since we want to hit level 0s or maybe not hit level 0s, depending on how we set up our finisher, as well as filter into any card we want by ditching those pants to waiting room. Another filter option that you could play is this new Amelia Rico, just a standard on-play Rico. Ditch a card, reveal top, salvage a level X or lower, where X is equal to the level of the card that you reveal. Revealing your top check, again, in this deck, if for some reason you don't have the Brainstorm on the board when you go for your combo, this is just another insurance card, which is why we have one of this and one of the previous Amelia in the deck, as opposed to just 2 Amelia. That top check knowledge with this Rico can be very powerful. And lastly, at level 0 is this Ram Climax Swap. It is a normal pay 1, discard a Climax swap from your waiting room, but if it's in your front row center slot, it also gets 3000 power, making it an additional fat level 0 beater at level 0. This deck is actually really impressive at level 0 with its power lines, considering we have a 4K here, possible 4500s here, 4 3K vanillas, as well as a possible 4500 defensively. Your opponent will most certainly be tearing their hair out to reverse your level 0 targets. Moving into level 1, we have this Happy Christmas Rem Climax combo. Climax combos with the pants, and during your turn gets 2k power, and when you play the pants, you reveal the top card of your deck, and if that card is a magic or weapon character, choose 1 magic or weapon character in your waiting room, add it to hand. You add anything here, its level isn't restricted by what you reveal or anything like that. Then you choose any of your characters and give it twin drive. Again, this has to check a character on top. That's why that scry from the Brainstorm is so valuable. Pop checks can be so valuable. We cannot whiff this since we're kind of exchanging hand for other resources to get compressed, then Brainstorm and plus back up later. Note that this card can activate from the back row. It does not need to be in the front row, which is very, very good considering we mostly want to slam Amelias into our opponent to get free stock, to then twin drive that Amelia vanilla out, so then later on in the game, we can keep putting it back in stock. That is the general loop that you're going to be going for in ReZero, putting those Amelias in stock, paying them out with twin drives and other effects, replacing them with other king cards, keeping your stock clean, generating a lot of it, and getting super, super compressed. This being able to activate from the back row lets you throw your front row with Reckless Abandon, as well as just use the twin drive that it gives to quote-unquote twin drive over targets that they can't clear, so that you keep a front row, keeping your damage buffer, and inching your opponent closer and closer to death, since Rem has so much reach. Here's the stock of the engine I mentioned earlier. It's this Amelia and this level 0 vanilla, both of which we play for, where when you play this Amelia, you choose the vanilla in your waiting room and pop it into your stock. Again, we can use things like the twin drive as well as our other stock outs to immediately pay out those Amelias or replace them with other cards so that we generate stock while keeping the vanillas in rotation so that we can continue to put them back into stock and generate more and more clean stock for free. This is a really, really powerful, really oppressive engine. It was on the ban list in JP and Bunny Girl. Then they took it off and gave it back, limiting the Mida 2. It's at full power in both sets now, this engine. And in ReZero, you get to play a full 4 stack of your finisher. It's really, really powerful. The big difference here in ReZero versus Albuta is Albuta trended towards an 8 door build. So every time you triggered a door, you can pick up a Stockada, slam that into stock, You have a lot of free salvaging and you get really compressed, so it's not hard to hit brainstorms, but you can't instantly convert your climax triggers, which are undoubtedly happening in every game of Weiss, into additional stock. You have to work a little bit harder to get this in there, but it's still so unbelievably broken and is a big reason outside of Rem Finisher herself why the deck is so good. No level 2s, like I said, so we're going to pop right into level 3s. We're going to play one of the old trusty Rem early play just as a healer option. 2 or less CX early play, 1000 power for each marker underneath the card. On play heal, and then when you get a reverse, you choose a magic or weapon character in your waiting room and put it underneath this as a marker. Like I said, mostly just here for that one of heal, since we don't play any other healers, as it's something that any Weiss Schwarz deck might need to do no matter how aggressive and powerful it is to stabilize a game or avoid dying. But the fact that she can command a very powerful stage presence if she sticks around a couple turns if your opponent's not able to answer it can be very nice. I like to play one of this Rem back row assist. She gives all your Rems, or Subarus, although there are no Subarus in the deck, 2000 power and hexproof. This is a one-of patch card that we play to play around our opponent's defensive counters at endgame, because it only works with Rems, and a lot of times we attack with Amelia. It's not something you use earlier than that, not that you could put it out early anyway. She also on play draw 2, drop 2, stocks top, so she only plays for 1. We are mostly stock gated in this deck since Rem replaces herself on play. We do have to generate a lot of stock, however, again, we got Stockuta, so being able to do that isn't that hard. So the fact that we can play this for 1 in the matchups that we need to, and potentially even just replace the stock we use on her with an Amelia Stockuta on that same turn, means that a lot of the time we can just get this out for free and ignore our opponent's defensive counters. Shoring up any super strong finisher is always a form of decompression, and ReZero was lucky enough to get a pretty good one. It's not a real stock swap, however, it's got a couple extra modes to it that make it a little better than your normal stock shuffle. The first one is that on play, you can choose one of the following 2 effects. One is the normal stock shuffle. You send all your opponent's stock to deck, they shuffle their deck, and then they put the same number of stock back blind from off the top. Coin flippy, but always positive for you. So long as your opponent's stock was clean, there's a chance that it's dirtier if you do it on a deck with climaxes in it. But if that's not something you want to do, you can also just free fresh. So this card can stabilize for you as well as, or possibly put more level 0s back in your deck if you're out, depending on what you need to do. You have a little bit of modularity there. It's not the craziest secondary effect, but it is a useful one. The other effect that's really nice in combination with the stock shuffle is this ditch a card, mill your opponent for 8. If your opponent has tried to play around stock shuffle by leaving a small deck so it is a lot more ambiguous, this card just instantly plays around it all in one card. Your opponent can't leave 1 card, your opponent can't leave any less than 8 cards, because on play you can discard a card, mill your opponent for 8, get them into that new deck where their deck does have climaxes in it, and then you can shovel their stock into their deck and coin flip them to try to decompress them. I talked about this with Jason when we were talking about Frieren, how you could play a mill counter to kind of create this kind of effect, but that's both a backup that you got to play on your opponent's turn, and there's a lot of things your opponent can do to play around that. Obviously, it's a counter, they got a front. This is all of that threat where your opponent struggles to leave a small or 1 card deck so that your stock shuffle doesn't do a lot, but all in 1 card. I know it seems a little bit underwhelming if you just read all the effects and be like, oh, it's a stock shuffle, oh, you mill your opponent 8. But this is very powerful that these effects are on the same card. And that's why we're playing 2. We can't afford to lose this card because Rem does have a lot of reach as a finisher, but any amount of decompression that we have can make those 3s more likely to stick at the end. And here is the piece de resistance, the Rem finisher herself. So on play, check 3, add a card, so she replaces herself in hand, which is good because on attack, pay 2, ditch 2, reveal top. If it's a level 0 or lower character, deal 3 to your opponent twice. Otherwise, deal 1 to your opponent twice. So the baseline is that she's Kokochino. Replaces herself on play, and then pay 2, ditch 2, burn 1, burn 1. But with 26 level zeros, with a scry, it's more often than not burning your opponent for 3 twice, then attacking. Each rem that you put on the board is 3 instances of damage by yourself, with a full combo at 10 stock being 9 instances of 3, or multiple instances of 3 for your attacks, and a couple burn 1s in there. That is an absolutely disgusting amount of reach, and although this card would be hard to pull off, especially in multiples because of the high stock and hand cost, even though she replaces herself, the fact that Emilia can just give you a bunch of free stock all throughout the game, you have plenty of ways to twin drive that stock out so that you keep those Emilias in rotation, using them turn after turn after turn. Getting to 10 stock is absolutely no issue at all, and you will get there more games than you ever have the right to. This card can easily blow up your opponents from a low level 2 if need be, and unlike a lot of high reach finishers, and when compared to something like Mai, which is an Icy Tail, albeit a very good one, Rem deals discrete amounts of damage. There is no amount of variance, truly, quote unquote. We're not going to talk about the top check, but you're always dealing a ton of damage, whether it's burn 3, swing 3, or burn 1, swing 3. That's still a lot of damage, even if all you get is pings. God forbid your opponent cancel one of those pings when you quote unquote whiff. You're still pushing a ton of damage here, and your reach is absolutely absurd. Like I said, double is practically free. Triple, you're going to get in at least 75% plus of your games. It's really, really disgusting. And when this does eventually come to English, I'm not going to be excited to sit across from it, but I'll definitely be thinking about playing it, because you don't really got to care about a lot of your matchups, and your reach is absolutely insane. Here's the deck all laid out one more time. Like I said, 26 level zeros, and a lot of them are really beefy, or they're a bomb, which means that dealing with ReZero at level 0 as the opponent is really, really tough, since you're having a whole board of 3k plus. Defensively might even shoot up to 45. You got that double drop search to find everything you need throughout the game, that being an on attack stock out to get those Emilias out of your stock and turn them into filter and search so that you can get exactly what you need. And then the Rem combo activating from the back row every turn, giving you twin drive as well, so that you can repeatedly use the Emilia, throw those vanillas in stock, pay them out, and then continue to put them back. Like I said, making it to 10 stock for that Rem finisher is no big deal, and you're going to get there more often than not. That being said, this isn't announced for English just yet, but come on, it's ReZero, it'll come eventually. So get out there on TCG Player and nab your Emilias and Vanillas now while you can. The second this set does officially get announced, those cards will be gone as quickly as possible. We've already seen it with Albuta. They're becoming hard to get. They're commons, they cost next to nothing, so get out there and grab them now, just so that you have them. And if for some reason ReZero never gets announced in English, this set in Japanese is unbelievably, disgustingly cheap. No one at your locals is going to care if you play English Emilias and English Vanillas and the rest of the deck in Japanese. Because this set was super over open so people could dive for high rarity cards, this set is unbelievably cheap. Outside of the PRs, and there are plenty of cards in the set that you can replace with the PRs if you're just building a deck for locals, you can grab this deck for somewhere between $50, $60, $70 US. And like I said, it's unbelievably powerful and doesn't care about a lot of its matchups. So if you're looking for something super strong to pick up in JP, or you just want to test this out for what I think is probably an inevitable English release, you can definitely pick this one up or spin it up in any of the simulator options. It is a blast to play. Playing with these Stakata engines is really fun. You can get super tricky with it, and it's really rewarding. And that about wraps us up for this one. In terms of upcoming content, I believe the next true set review is going to be Albuta, which I talked about in this a couple times. So got the new Rascal set with everybody's favorite my casino crazy finisher, so be on the lookout for that. There's also P3 Reload. I got to reach out to Andy and get his schedule so that we can put something together and get that together. He's a big fan of that franchise, and since it's a smaller premium booster, that shall surely be a fun quick set review for us to do. So be on the lookout for those. Pittsburgh White Schwartz signing off, and we'll see you in the next one.